Hawaii. It has been a quiet week in Lake Wobegon. It got very quiet when all that snow fell and the weather turned cloudy and cold, a gray sky the color of a tin roof. Then when they found out I was coming here to Hawaii, things got even quieter than that. Bitterness and envy are never nice to see, especially among Christian people who used to tell me, "Be content with what you have, dear." We should all feel fortunate to have food on the table and a roof over our heads, assuming that someone who tells lies like I do would never prosper. But here I am, cruising up and down Prince Kuhio Avenue in a clean shirt and a pair of shades, at the wheel of an '87 Mirage with unlimited mileage. I believe I am the first person from Lake Wobegon to make the trip here, though Hjalmar and Virginia Inkvist were going to come 4 years ago with their grandson Stanley. I know it was 4 years ago because he was 14 then and he's 18 now, almost 18 anyway. He'll be 18 in a month or two. They picked him up in Fergus Falls and drove to Fargo and got on an Elks charter flight to Hawaii via Los Angeles over South Dakota. Hjalmar had a glass of complimentary pink champagne and began to hum to himself. He patted Shirley, the stewardess's hand, as she poured him a refill. He carried it with him, strolling up and down the aisle, saying, "Call me Hjalmar," glad handing strangers like he was in public office. Stanley was deeply embarrassed. He shrank down in his seat. Shirley offered another glass. Hjalmar said, "Well, you're the doctor." Arrived in Los Angeles in a mood to entertain, pranced down the concourse singing, "Honolulu Mama, could she dance in her pink pajamas when she took off her Oahu, Oahu, Oahu." Virginia laughed and laughed. Stanley walked 20 feet behind, as far away as he could get and not be afraid of losing them completely. The poor child was so distracted by grief and shame and worry. He didn't see where he was going, and he tumbled down a flight of stairs, holding onto his suitcase, and broke his leg. They came home with nothing to show for it but a souvenir hula doll. You poke her top, she wiggles her bottom. Hjalmar hasn't touched pink champagne since. Daryl and Marilyn Tullerud were thinking about coming to Hawaii 3 years ago. Their pig operation had done well, and they had money in the bank. But then Daryl thought, "No," he said, "rather than going this year," after they'd gotten their brochures, "what we'll do is invest that money in building up the herd, get more feeder pigs, and next winter we'll go and take your parents too." So they did. It was January. He went out one morning and 24 pigs had died of a virus. They were lying on their backs in the sun with their little legs stuck straight up in the air. Next morning there were 42 more dead. And about 68 died about 2 days after that. And that was their trip to Hawaii. In February 1957, 12 men from Lake Wobegon Lutheran were going to come to Honolulu for the National Church Ushers Convention, including the finals of the Ushers team competition. The guys had raised thousands of dollars for the trip and had been drilling for 2 nights a week for 6 months, practicing their silent usher signals, a complicated set of hand and eyebrow signals like this. Cupped hands, it means need additional hymnal in this pew, or crossed arms and kicking motion, remove this child, or fluttering fingers with arms akimbo, need a new collection plate, this one is too full. A signal seldom used in church, but popular at contests. Nowadays, many ushers use walkie-talkies, especially in big churches where they're called sanctuary security and can be heard during the service, lurking behind pillars and back in the vestibule, beeping each other, talking walkie-talkie talk. Avenging Angel, this is Deadly Shepherd. We are proceeding now into recessional sequence. ETA on the Benny is 12:59:30. But back in 1957, they used silent signals in a team of 12. A head usher, the front 4, 5 linebackers, and 2 deep safeties. They knew the service forward and backward. They could run it in their sleep, and often did. That's when they used their only non-silent signal, when they looked and saw a buddy resting his eyes and listening to starboard. The sinus toot, brah, the usher's wake-up call. The local squad that was coming to Hawaii in 1957, nicknamed the Herdsmen, was headed by Val Tollefson. He wasn't elected, he just happened to be the one who made up the lineup every Sunday. So he got to decide between Cliff Peterson and Cully Kolstad for the 12th spot on the traveling squad, a tough call that Val made at Wednesday night practice. Cliff got the nod. All the herdsmen were standing in the vestibule, buttoning their overcoats and buckling their overshoes. Clarence said, "What? Why Cliff?" Val put on his hat, pretending not to hear him. Everyone was a little embarrassed. Why did you decide that? It's seniority, Clarence. Cliff's been with us longer. No, he hasn't. Coley's been an usher since 46, and Cliff didn't even move here until after that. Val took a long, slow, deep breath to give himself time to think. Clarence was right. He slowly let his breath out. It's not just seniority, Clarence. Of course it's not. Seniority is just one thing. It's also dedication and teamwork, how a man gets along with other people on the team. You can't just pick people you like. It's not right. Val put on his gloves. Well, you know, Clarence, we wouldn't be arguing about this if you hadn't brought it up in the first place. He looked around at the other herdsmen and they glanced down at their feet. Val said, if you want me to step down as head usher, then just say so right now and I will. He let a few seconds pass. All right then. A silent election. Not as good as guys hoisting you on their shoulders and carrying you around the room, but it meant he was reelected for another 3 or 6 or 10 or 20 years. Until whenever somebody dared to stand up to him again. Cliff got to go on the traveling team instead of Cully. And Cliff got an official herdsman's insignia sewn on his suit jacket, the shepherd's staff against a field of blue, blue standing for obedience. As the Lord would have said in the Sermon on the Mount if he had time, blessed are those who arrive early, wait to be seated, and sit where they are told. The ushers at that service would have been called Mounties, and they'd have passed out bulletins. Peter and Andrew went fishing last week and caught so many that their nets almost broke. Way to go, guys. In addition to loaf and fish distribution. Cliff got on the team to come to Hawaii for the finals, but people had bad feelings about Cully's not coming. Several guys said, Cully, you take my place. I don't even care about Hawaii. I don't want to go. But Cully said, no, I feel that the Lord made this happen as a way of testing my faith and drawing me closer to him. They voted to take 13 guys, 12 regulars and an alternate, but Cully said no. He felt that his faith had been strengthened so much in just a few days. And he was learning about how if you turn the other cheek, it actually makes you a stronger person, and the Lord comes in and takes away your bitterness and replaces it with love. At that point, morale was so low, the herdsmen couldn't have organized a 2-car parade. They went to Minneapolis for the semifinals and stumbled around in Central Lutheran, a big, strange sanctuary, and never got adjusted to triple aisle formation and scored only 82.12 points. That was as far as they got. No Hawaii for them. Wait a minute, you say. The herdsmen were paying their own way. They could have gone to Hawaii, whether they got into the ushers competition or not, couldn't they? No, they could not. This was Minnesota. They were Lutherans, and you didn't just fly over to Hawaii for your own pleasure because you wanted to. It wasn't right. You walk in the chatterbox and say, guess what? We're going to Hawaii. And someone say, oh, say, that's great. Sure wish I could afford to go on a trip like that. That must be nice, being able to take off and go like that. And guilt begins to fall like a gentle rain of rabbit pellets on your head. You shouldn't go, and you know it. The extravagance of it. The money you're spending having a good time while people you love are home, suffering, needing you. How can you do it, you selfish pig? You can't. Only way you can go to Hawaii is if you can say, well, it looks like we're going to Hawaii after all. Yeah, I wasn't going to go, but she's got her heart set on it. So, you know, yeah, her sister and brother-in-law, Annette and Warren, remember them? The one who had the chemotherapy and lost all his hair? They're going. And they got this package deal on a tour where they needed another couple to go in on it with them. So, you know, you've got to have a good reason to go to Hawaii. Yeah, well, we're going to see my aunt on Maui. She's going to be in a hotel there. She doesn't live on Maui. She lives in Cleveland, but she's there visiting friends of hers, and we figured that as long as we're going to Portland for the funeral, we might as well go over. And as you explain the web of circumstance that forces you to visit that tropical land of romance and delight, people nod. They understand. Yeah, well, that's right. God knows you don't want to go to paradise, but you got to. There's no way out of it. It's that kind of deal. My people aren't paradise people. We've lived in Minnesota all our lives, and it took a lot out of us. My people aren't sure if we'll even like paradise. Not sure that perfection is all it's cracked up to be. My people will arrive in heaven and stand just inside the gate, shuffling around. It's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, we'll think. We'll say, no thank you. We can't stay for eternity. We'll just sit and have a few minutes of bliss with you, and then we have to get back. We were brought up to work hard, not complain, accept that life is hard, and make the best of what little we have. So when we come to the grandeur and grace of an eternal flower garden ringed by mountains, beside the pale blue coral sea under the continuous sun, we naturally say, oh, no thanks, it's too much, really, I don't care for it. Just give me some ice, please. When Lake Wobegon Lutheran women walk into heaven, they'll think it's church and look for the stairs to go down the basement where the kitchen is. When the men arrive, they'll look at the Father's mansions and talk about siding, aluminum versus cedar shakes. My people aren't paradise people, but when God loves you, then everywhere is paradise enough. The honeymooners walking along Waikiki Beach are in love, and yet they are uneasy in paradise, not sure their love is good enough for paradise to last. When Daryl and Marilyn saw their dead Hawaiian pigs on a cold January morning, it was enough to break their hearts. If 2 of you pick up 68 little pig carcasses by their frozen legs and throw them into the pickup and haul them to a landfill and bury them, and if you don't get mad and blame each other, just do the job and go to bed, your pig's gone and your shirt's lost, and turn toward the middle and lie in each other's arms, that's true love. Probably it will last because it has endured so much already.